everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of Vlog Reviews. Today I talk about BloodRayne. I had never played BloodRayne when it was originally out. I'm not really even sure if I even told this story. I remember back in the day my buddy Andy had played this, and I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, this game looks like shit. And I never played it. I did play the side-scroller that came out quite a few years ago on the Xbox Live system, and but I never played the original. I also own it on Xbox, but I figured if I'm going to record it and try and do a video, it might be easier to just record it off the PlayStation 2. To be fair, I've only played maybe 3.5, maybe nearly 4 hours of this game. And I've only gotten to, I guess, the second act of the game. But these are my thoughts overall on BloodRayne. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, if you've been following me on Twitter, you probably know. I think this game sucks. Here's why. BloodRayne tries to advertise itself as a hack-and-slash game in the same vein as Devil May Cry, or something to that effect. The controls kind of try to act like it's a first-person shooter with a third-person element and a bit of a hack and slash, but God, this gameplay is awful. It's very derivative. A lot of the attacks don't feel like that they have any impact whatsoever. So does the gunplay. And the gunplay feels very secondary. Every single time you pick up a gun, you're not really even sure how much ammo you even have for it. You're not really even sure what kind of guns you're even using, nor do they... Again, none of them feel like that they have any punch to them or anything like that. I mean, when you're fighting just a normal opponent, it just doesn't seem to matter which weapon you use. I mean, in the end, specifically if you're fighting a humanoid character, it's usually just better, easier, and faster to just drain them. Because that's the most effective attack. It stops them, and it gives you back life. That's pretty much it. The only guns that I ever got any satisfaction out of were the big guns. And those were also guns that have limited ammo, and once they're gone, they're gone. And that's pretty much it. Let me go into a few more specifics about BloodRayne. So, BloodRayne, as far as I know, has about 3 or 4 acts or levels to it. Level 1 is Louisiana, where you and your mentor/friend have been sent or decided to come here and try to rescue the survivors and kill these biomasses, which are basically spiders that have these giant nests that they're just spewing out of. It's heavily a platforming level because there are giant splashes of water everywhere. So thankfully the water won't kill you instantly, but it will slowly over time if you just spend too much time in there. And then level 2, you're killing Nazis. So at least that gets a tad more interesting. And then level 3, you're fighting Nazis and demons, apparently. So really, yeah, there are 3 levels. The levels have a lot of different sections to them. Whenever you go to a different part, the game then has to load. And it's here in level 1 that you're given these very easy enemy types. You got the zombies that can shoot guns, and then you got the spiders. They're really not that much of a challenge, neither are the nests. The nests just spawn, and usually I would just do Blood Rage and then just mash them and they were gone. In level 2, things get a tad more interesting because then they start introducing these officers that can block your attacks, so you gotta hit them from behind. But the AI is so damn stupid that usually if you just attack them and then quickly go around them, you can feed on them and then just kill them a lot quickly that way. And that was really it. Basically, you're just fighting more guys with guns that are slightly smarter than the zombies, and there are just a lot more of them. And then you also get these slug creatures, which again are just far more annoying. And sort of the same thing with that final boss fight where, well, I don't even know if that was really even a boss fight, where you're in this room with these other officer-type characters, and they're heavily armed, and your main goal is to kill the gray guy. But there are just so damn many of them, and then there are the slug things. After about 3 or 4 tries, I finally just got so annoyed, because when you die, you then have to repeat the entire section all over again. And it was just absolutely no fun. If you were to ask me in terms of, because the Hellboy game was pretty awful, but that had a lot of things that were going against it. The controls were bad. The so-called combat was god-awful. This is at least a step up from that, because the combat is slightly better, but not that great. Not that satisfying or fun to it either. Let's talk about a few other aspects about the game that I don't feel like I really went into all that well. You have a few other abilities that the game tries to bring into. You have like this wall kick ability when if there's a slight hole or a crack in the wall, you can usually break through it. You're meant to use it in order to get around locked doors, basically. The game also tries to introduce backtracking elements all of a sudden, but doesn't do a very good job explaining how it works. At one point, you gotta find a battery for an elevator, and the game tells you, and BloodRayne just inexplicably says that, oh, maybe the car in the garage has one. And I'm thinking, what car? What garage? But the game tells me where I need to go, and the battery's not even in the car. It's off to the side of the freaking car. And this also happens again, I think, in, a part of level 2, where you gotta find another freaking battery for something. Yeah, this game is just bad. It's a bad, not very fun, not very intuitive, and just... how did this game get 7s out of 10? What is so strange about this game is, is when I started playing, I went through the tutorial, but the tutorial only tells you a few basic little things, but it tells you instead of actually really letting you do it, it kind of lets you experience it, kind of, but in very small doses. And the dialogue, if you can even hear it, thank God subtitles are automatic, or else otherwise you wouldn't know what the hell anybody was even saying.
Mother of God, what is that? Only one way to find out.
Not that it matters, because it's just kind of talking about what's going on, and then telling you, go here, do this, and then that's that. The attacks feel awkward and bad. You have a melee attack with the L1 button, and then you shoot all of your guns with the R1 button, and then you can switch your guns with the R2 button. And then you have a few different abilities. You have a Blood Rage ability, which you just activate with triangle, which slows everything down, Matrix style, but it amplifies your strength. So that's pretty effective during boss fights. It's also pretty good against, just multitudes of enemies that come at you. I found it more effective in the second act area when you're dealing with these, slug-like creatures that will just surround you and are they're the most irritating part about that entire level, in fact. What else? You have an aura sense as well, but it's kind of meaningless when you realize that there's a little blue icon at the bottom right of the screen that also tells you, when you're filled for your blood rage, that kind of tells you, like, oh, that blue spot is over here. You need to turn around and go over there instead of activating your aura sense. Which, when you do, is very uncomfortable to look at and watch, because the entire screen kind of goes blurry, kind of like a vertigo effect a little bit, and it's very jarring and very uncomfortable. So thankfully, if you're going to use aura, just stand still so you can, properly pinpoint where it is you're supposed to go. But once I realized that, oh, I have this little mini map that will actually tell me where I'm supposed to go, the aura sense was utterly useless. You also have a slowdown ability that you get at one point, which I only kind of used for a few boss fights, and then that was it. The one advantage that this game gave me at one point was your mentor gives you, a lance ability, which is just more useful for feeding. Allows you to pull in opponents from further away so that you can feed on them. It does work on other opponents that you can't feed on, like the insects, but I only used it for feeding since that's really all it's used for. And this game tries to have some level progression where every time that you kill a specific opponent, this doesn't really come into effect until Act 2, when you start killing specific targets, where it gives you new attacks, but all of your attacks are just from the L1 button. Sure, some of them are through different things like jumping or feeding, but you're not going to be using them that much. And even then, they only seem to work or activate when they want to. Like, there's a specific one-hit kill attack, but it only really seemed to do it whenever it felt like doing it. So, yeah, that felt kind of pointless. And, I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, you got Act 1 in Louisiana, which are these swamplands with giant mounds of water, which amplitudes do a lot of platforming, and the platforming does not feel good at all because the jumping is very wonky. The controls work for the most part for what they are. The combat is incredibly dull. And it's only until when you get to Act 2 that the real difficulty starts to set in. Because, I mean, the first level boss was an actual challenge for once, but once I realized all I had to do was kind of encircle around him and just go for his legs, really wasn't that hard. And just a lot of elements of this game are just very lame. Like, your mentor character is killed off oh so easily and quickly at one point.
Man! Red Lord!
No one left. Damn it. Time to put an end to this. I'll find those bastards and rip their legs off one by one.
Kind of making it seem like your entire mission and purpose was pointless when she gets killed and then the survivors that you managed to wrangle up all get killed. And something that's kind of unexplained is the beginning of the second act, where all of a sudden Rayne is working for this organization where she's given a task of hunting down these Nazi officers and killing them and finding this artifact. Now, yeah, there's an opening cinematic of the game that shows that she's being watched by this group that want to recruit her because she's tough and she's a vampire killer, she's a half-breed, and all this, and it's just... okay, but Rayne's not really given much of a character. She's pretty wooden. She's given some bit of character, but it's so minor, and her quips that she gives while she's in combat, you're lucky if you can even hear or even understand what she's saying, because the rest of the audio will usually just drone it out.
I'm gonna shut your ugly face. I'm afraid I'm just not that kind of girl. Well, most of the time. Bastard.
And I came upon some pretty annoying glitches. Of course, I'm not sure if they were glitches or what. There's this spot in the second act where I was in this warehouse room, and I'm trying to figure out where am I supposed to go next. And all the while, the game is telling me that there's an enemy in the room shooting at me. And after I've been all over the room, there's nobody here, but there's gunfire. And if I stand still, I start taking damage, and then I'll die. And this happened every fucking time, too, that I would come into this room. Regardless of if I killed all the enemies, there was always one guy just somewhere ambiguously in this room. So, I got about as far as getting to the slug creatures, which are the most annoying aspect of the game, because by this point, enemies take so many damn hits. Thankfully, even when they're infected, you can still just feed on them to regain your energy. And you're going to need to, because you start taking damage so heavily. And the game's not really hard. It's just, I don't know, it just starts to feel just really unfair to a point where you start taking massive amounts of damage, and no matter how much you try to feed, and then, because you'll just get enemies just popping up behind you all of a sudden, especially those stupid slug creatures, and they take so damn long to hit and to kill. And I got to this spot in the game where I'm supposed to kill this other specific officer who's, you know, fully clad in his assassin uniform. You know, I'm a badass. And Jesus. This really does harken back to, you know, the old days of gaming, where when you died in a level, regardless of the fact that you got to a boss fight, you have to repeat that entire previous section again. Thankfully, if you know where to go, you can just ignore the enemies and just go right on through. But that really doesn't make it any easier, because there are so many enemies in this one room that even just to feed to try to regain health is a pain in the ass, that finally I just ended up giving up. When I looked this game up, I was very surprised to see that this game had like 7 out of 10s from IGN, and then I think even a 6 out of 10. And I'm thinking, why? This game is so bland and mediocre at best. I mean, the combat does not feel good. The platforming feels awful. The game kind of looks like shit. And, I mean, it plays fine. There's not a whole lot about this game that really sells it to me. And well, the previous video review that I watched for it tried to make a claim that, oh, well, maybe the reason why this game sold was because of, you know, the sexuality of the character. And even I would think, like, no, because, yeah, sexuality can sell. It can, but it can't really sell a shitty product. It really can't. Because I remember looking at this and seeing this and just thinking, so? I mean, especially at the time, there were so many other better games. I mean, hell, I mean, Devil May Cry, or hell, or a year before, you had Max Payne that had, you know, the same slowdown effect, but it was used, you know, for, you know, in order to emphasize the action. And I remember made that game quite a bit better and quite a lot of fun, actually. Quite a lot of other better games came out about that same time of year. You had Warcraft 3, for crying out loud. Blood Omen 2, which is not a great game, but the combat was certainly a lot more interesting than than BloodRayne. That's for certain. I got this game for probably about $5 or so at the local used game shop that I frequent. That sounds about right. It's amazing that this game even got sequels, that people were trying to keep this series alive. And from what I've read, especially, and from what I remember about the side-scrolling version of BloodRayne, BloodRayne Betrayal, I believe was what it was called, that even that didn't review very well, that the difficulty was just way too hard, and that it throws way too many enemies at you, and that the controls don't feel that good. I haven't played it in probably about a year or so, but I would kind of have to agree. And this game sucks. I will be playing the sequel, which I do have. So, and I heard from my buddy who played the BloodRayne games, he said that the sequel's better. So I guess we'll just see. Everybody, this has been Vlog Reviews. Hope that you enjoy. Please click the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter. Support me on Patreon. Links are in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.